Expert level motorcycle tier list. We are back with YouTube's most creative and innovative format. Two white guys in front of a whiteboard doing a tier list video, right, Logan?
Yeah, I'm thinking we switch it out for a chalkboard, you know, get some diversity around here.
I think that's a good idea. 2026, watch this space. Maybe we get a chalkboard. So today's video, we're talking about finisher bike, the kind of top of the line flagship machines, riders that have been riding for a long time, looking for the best of the best. Anything else on this criteria, Logan?
No, I mean, yeah, it's like a rider who's maxed out their skill tree. You know, they've been hoarding XP points, ready to bank them all on a finisher aspirational motorcycle.
Yes. So let's start off with the first one that we probably think all of you are familiar with, the Yamaha R1M. The carbon fiber laden winglet having updated front brake having motorcycle from Yamaha, Crossplane 4. This one would rank pretty high if you were 22 years old, let's say. But I think for the vast majority of well-heeled adults in their 30s and 40s, an R1M, to me, maybe you guys don't agree with me, it's a little juvenile, a little too, you know, anime. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like R1M to me is not that prestigious.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit long in the tooth now, right? Like if we were 22, well, I mean, I'm 23 now.
Yeah, he's 23
Thank you
now.
for the birthday wishes, by the way. That's really nice. If I were 22 and it was 10 years ago, you know, it's a different story. But in 2025, yeah, the R bike thing, it's not really doing it for me. It just gives me like, it's the same people that, you know, glaze the R6 constantly, but then are like, you know, I've got, you know, a good raise at my job. I'm ready to get a bigger, badder bike. It just has that same sort of, juvenile attitude toward it.
So in today's video, we think that the R1M is gonna rank as a C tier. So it's kind of middle of the road, you know, like it's a great motorcycle if you're a little cost conscious. You don't want to spend a ton of money on your finisher motorcycle. You know, we're not talking $50,000, $60,000 CVOs. It's still very competent on track and still a great motorcycle to own and ride, and arguably the most reliable bike on today's video, except for a few exceptions. Let's move on to the second motorcycle.
So at one point in time, a mere 25 years ago, the Suzuki Hayabusa would have been the expert level motorcycle we all want to aspire to. But today, while still legendary in its status, just gonna tear the bandit off, it's an F today.
Oh,
it's
wow.
an F tier motorcycle.
Wow. How can we explain putting it as an F tier, though?
Like I said, it was the fastest motorcycle in 1999, right?
Yeah,
like
that was a while ago.
26 years later. Like we gotta move on, right? Like Suzuki's been kind of milking the Hayabusa as this legendary thing for so long. And right, legendary in its status, in its ethos, in its mythology, but it's like the only people going and buying a brand new Hayabusa in 2025, 2026 are guys from the suburbs with a couple jet skis, a pickup truck, and like a cursory understanding of motorcycles. For those in the know, I don't think we're going and buying brand new Busas anymore.
No, and I think the Hayabusa owner and rider who's going to buy one brand new, Suzuki's even leaned into this a little bit when they launched the third gen. It's a heritage product now. It's a product that somebody who's already owned one or two Busas in the past 26 years since its inception wants that brand spanking new updated experience. And when you compare it to things that have a little bit more prestige, a little bit more allure, it just kind of falls flat on its face. And so in the realm of like a final expert finisher motorcycle, I think we do have to rank the Busa an F today. Which, it pains me to say that. But again, buying a brand new Busa in 2026, it's just kind of a weird choice as like your final finisher bike. I mean, they're even selling this thing with like little side luggage now. It's like very much like, they're like, all right, we got to make sure this thing can be ridden by 56-year-olds, you know, because it's kind of getting long in the tooth.
Yeah, I think if you happen upon, an affordably priced, well-maintained, used third-gen Hayabusa, sure, pick it up, but I don't think many people are thinking like, this is the finisher expert level bike I aspire to. Yeah. At least anymore. A
big qualifier we thought of was like, how would this motorcycle feel if you just like posted it on Instagram? And I don't know if this one would get all that much engagement.
No.
Third gen Busa, F tier. Sad to say, but yeah.
It is what it is.
Moving on. Next up, a motorcycle that needs no introduction is possibly the most emblematic finisher motorcycle, the Honda Goldwing. The most gentlemanly of motorcycles, a bike that when you think of an experienced rider, you kind of think of Goldwing.
Absolutely.
Like I think these monikers kind of go hand in hand. You think of a guy who's been riding for 20, 30 years, been around the block.
An experienced human.
An experienced human, yeah. And these have a wonderful history, excellent build quality, and they're expensive, but not too expensive to own. And I think a motorcycle you could be proud to own as well. What do you think about the Goldwing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Goldwing's really interesting because, while it is a motorcycle that's been around for forever, unlike the Busa, it is this new space age version of what it once was, right? Like, it is not a heritage model per se. It is a modern interpretation, packed to the gills with features and performance that pays homage to the bike that, you know, made massive moves for Honda since the 80s. So yeah, I think the Goldwing's pretty sweet. Maybe one day I'll get there, you know, as a 23-year-old, I got some years to go, some experience to get under my belt before I take on something like the Goldwing, but I think it's a solid motorcycle.
So as a quick side note, obviously Logan is not 23 years old, and he now has the new handle of being a former 20-something. That's your new tagline. So Logan, the former 20-something. You'll hold on to that one for a while. So Goldwing, we're gonna rate very highly today. We're gonna put it in the A tier. We think this bike is phenomenal for the expert finisher rider, and mostly one of the reasons that ended up so high on our list today is because the Goldwing is extremely good at what it's designed to do in terms of its efficacy. It is the best long-distance touring motorcycle you could possibly get. So, Goldwing, A tier, fantastic finisher motorcycle. You will exude respectability, maturity, and just an upstanding quality in your entire day-to-day existence with the Goldwing. Moving on.
So the existence of the Goldwing must necessitate the existence of the Road Glide, sort of the evil twin version of a Honda Goldwing, you know. So Road Glide, just we don't need to get that specific about it. One of Harley-Davidson's big touring models, right? Road Glide, Street Glide. These are the ones that, you know, someone's been promoted to a foreman at their tradesman job. They got that nice year-end bonus. They're gonna go down to the Harley-Davidson dealership, get primo financing on a $30,000 bagger. You know, they post it on their Facebook feed with pictures of like their kids with like food all over their faces, you know, like that aesthetic. And so for certain people, it's an aspirational motorcycle. For certain people, it's maybe something they want to steer clear of. We were talking and it's like, yeah, if I was loaned or rented a Road Glide and they said, go to Florida for a couple weeks, have fun. Sure, I'd have fun.
Yeah.
But it's not a bike I'm necessarily gonna buy and put in my stable personally.
No, the thought of, like you said, you get a couple extra grand and you're like, I'm gonna plunk it down on a Harley and then, take advantage of that 84-month, 19.99% easy financing on that bike and you're gonna have a great time. That's a hard pill to swallow. And I just, you guys know me, I'm not a big Harley guy. And this is where the subject of taste starts coming up. If it's your type of bike and it's your type of thing, that's amazing. Go for it. I think it makes an amazing finisher bike if you're into that thing. I just can't really make heads or tails of it when the Goldwing exists, when, BMW GSs or Multistradas, all these other more interesting and better served motorcycles exist. And we talked about the Road Glide being a bike that, much like the Busa, someone who doesn't really know much about bikes maybe would go and pick one up, add it to the stable, So we were kind of rough with this one, right? Yeah. What was the rating?
So this one's another F-tier motorcycle. Just because, and it's like, I'm a guy that likes heritage, likes air-cooled engines and stuff, but it's like, there are different European models that do that, right? Like that you can get, Harley-Davidson's not the only one that makes two-cylinder motorcycles with a lot of torque and that make cool sounds, right? Like they don't have a corner on that
Shocker.
Market. Ascending to Road Glide ownership as an expert rider sounds kind of antithetical to the experience. So,
and hey, Logan, if those Road Glide owners could understand multi-syllabic words, then they would be really upset right now, but they can't.
They don't really watch the channel anyway.
That's true. Using those fancy what did you say? Antithetical? What did you say? Oh my God, look at that.
Antithetical to the experienced rider experience.
That is a 10-cent word right there. Road Glide, F. Moving on. Next up, a clout goblin motorcycle if there ever was one. The S1000RR, a motorcycle that gets body and fairing updates every other year just so that they can sell you another one so you can post it on Instagram because now you got the super big winglets and the carbon and then this and then that. The S1000RR is a bike that dads like, it's a bike that young guys like, and that is kind of a hard thing to pull off now that I think about it. I've seen and met guys out here on Lime Creek Road, they got the full suit, they're riding the S1000RRs, they pull up to the gas station, take the helmet off, 56-year-old guy. You're like, wow, that's amazing. Simultaneously on Instagram, you see some dip kid with a 620 credit score somehow financed the S1000RR. He's posting about it all over. They also love it too. So this is kind of a bike with a lot of prestige, Logan. I think it's kind of a good finisher bike.
Yeah, people love it. I think the only people that don't love it are just haters, right? Like it's easy to be like, it's easy to be like, I don't associate with everything that bike stands for. I don't like it. But a lot of people do, 100%.
Yes. Yeah, it's a technically very good motorcycle, makes tons of power. It has the right badge on it, right? The BMW badge. Hate it or love it, has that extra prestige, especially coming from the car world crossover where people think of them as, luxurious and all this sort of thing. One of the only brands in the motorcycling world that has that kind of car crossover in the upper echelon. So for a lot of people, BMW is the brand. If you go to a BMW dealership, it's all white and you get the little coffee thing. So I think it carries a lot of weight. Hot pretzels, yeah. You dip them in cheese and the Bavarian style and all that. It's the type of bike that I could never see myself owning just because I'm an idiot and I like Italian motorcycles better because I'm a masochist. But this is a great bike and it exudes a lot of character, a lot of, prestige and all that. So we did rate it an A+ today. In terms of expert bikes, you could do a whole lot worse. S1000RR, I think, yeah. It kind of hurt me to put it above a Goldwing, but again, I think because young and old people both like it, it's kind of sweet. What do you think, Logan? S1000RR? Anything else to say about it?
I don't think so. So when it comes to expert level motorcycles, there are many, but there's only one with a supercharger.
That's right.
Kawasaki Ninja H2. You like this bike? You had this bike?
I do like this bike a lot. Yeah. Again, the supercharger, whooshing noises, the fairing design, the carbon fiber, all that stuff. It's cool. It's a cool bike. It's very cool.
It's a cool bike, and it has still, unlike the S1000RR that's fairly ubiquitous. You see one every time you go to a twisty road or a track day.
Literally.
H2s are still elusive. You know what I mean? Kawasaki produces few of them every year. You either have to pre-order them or magically come across one like the Sword and the Stone.
Yeah, or buy one used that's a piece of shit like I did, and then it keeps breaking all the time and chewing through batteries because somebody used it as a mile bike. They are very much like, I think of them in two different ways. They're like that ultra rare item in a video game you gotta do all the side quests for, and then you're like, oh, I finally got the thing. Or it's like a holographic Pokemon card or something. Sure, they're rare, they're rare, which is cool. And you just don't see them. I have never seen one in person other than the one that I owned.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. I've done so many motorcycle events, been riding for 10 plus years, never have spotted one in the wild. Not once. Maybe it's because I'm not at 3 a.m. on the highway. I feel like I'd see one pretty regularly if I did that.
Yeah, or you don't see them because they're moving so fast.
Ooh, that's
you can't even clock it.
Yeah. You just see a blur.
Yeah, and I think something that's, we've talked about the prestige element of these motorcycles, even for a non-rider or someone with a very surface level knowledge, you see an H2 and it's impactful, right? It inspires shock and awe. And so I think even that is something that people aspire to and want to have something that's, even if someone doesn't recognize it as an H2, they recognize it as a serious piece of machinery.
Yes, yes, it is instantly recognizable, but it's not too niche such that someone would look at it and be like, I don't know what that is. You know, they see this crazy looking bike and they are all over the internet as well. They are if you just want a cheat code for views, you just pick up an H2 and just post about it.
So this one we rated an S.
Oh, top of the mountain.
Top of the mountain.
S tier.
And I think even in terms of household or average recognizability, obviously people know the Kawasaki name. They might have a Kawasaki lawnmower, or they knew somebody with a Kawasaki motorcycle, and it's a Ninja H2. So it's they know that means something, right? Yeah. And I think when you make decisions to get approval of other people or recognition from other people, that stuff's important, whether you think about it or not.
Yeah.
So,
top of the mountain. How the heck did I get stuck with this one, Logan?
I don't know, you picked the order.
Oh my God, I guess I did. BMW GS. Now, for today's video, my bias is being cast aside. You guys know how I feel about this motorcycle, but I cannot deny millions of people around the globe absolutely love these things. They're a very interesting heritage model. They've been making them the same way for a long time. It's evolved over time. I kind of called this bike the kind of Porsche 911 of motorcycles, where it's inherently wrong, right? A boxer twin that's gigantic, but they just have polished it enough to where it just works. Helilever suspension, crazy balancing, the center of gravity. Similar to the 911, where the engine should not go in the rear, and yet somehow they made it work all these years later. The GS is a very interesting bike because much like the S1000RR, it has the brand prestige, the badge prestige, but yet it also has mainstream cultural appeal because of, you guessed it, a very famous Jedi by the name of Ewan McGregor, who piloted one around the world, which was very cool back in the mid-2000s, and I think elevated this bike, the adventure craze, all that stuff. And so I think this one's a pretty high contender, right?
Yeah, 100%. And, I think maybe the GS peaked 10 years ago or whatever, but that's a matter of taste, right? Like I like simple analog purity. They are very like spaceship spec now. But for a lot of people, you know, that's something they're interested in. It's similar to the Goldwing, where it's like, it's still the silhouette and the purpose and the idea of its original form, but then just crammed full of engineering technology, like massive developments over the years to be this distinctly otherworldly capable machine that plenty of people love.
Yeah. So. I think the GS also has that like I've made it vibes.
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
Like the Road Glide has that, but we kind of joke that it's like, you know, dummies pick that up with no taste. The GS definitely is like, all right, you know something about motorcycles, you feel like you've made it, you want a GS. Especially, I think, in international communities. Like I've seen in like, you know, Brazil or India or like in Europe, it's like a GS is like, all right, like you've made it. Like you are like the big guy with the GS. So the GS we rated an A-. We're going minuses today just because our ranking actually had things going out to the 100th place in the ranking. So A-. We did that because I don't think it's quite there with the Goldwing in terms of its overall prestige and its overall execution. It doesn't do off-road all that great, which is part of its design briefing. It is really good at slabbing up miles though. Radar adaptive cruise control, nice torquey engine, really nice place to sit for a very long time. But ultimately, you know, right there on the A- mark. So I think we're gonna rate it. Okay, moving on. If you've been thinking about becoming a member on YamiNoob.co, now is the best time to do it. We've started new Discord-only micro giveaways. Every other week, I'm gonna be giving away to someone on Discord some tires, gloves, helmets, jackets, boots, anything I can think of that would help them on their motorcycle ride. If you're interested in winning consistent fun prizes, head over to YamiNoob.co and become a member today. Of course, the best prize of all is winning a giveaway motorcycle. December 26th is the very last day you have to get in to win this bike. So head over to the website, become a member, and join and have some fun on the server. Now let's get back to the show.
So you have to be a specific type of sicko to own a KTM Super Duke. I mean, that's not a brand new sentiment. I think we've literally said that before. I think they said that exact same sentiment.
Yes.
But it's true. But for many, it is an expert level aspirational motorcycle. If they're orange pilled, they've got the dirt bikes, they've got the Duke 790s, the 990s, whatever the hell they sell these days. You see yourself being like, one day I'm gonna get the Super Duke, I'm gonna get the massive V-twin engine, all the torque, do crazy wheelies, have crazy shocking design language that, you know, makes children cry and stuff. So, but where do you stand on it? Because there's some buts.
Yes, controversially, the Super Duke to me has none of the prestige that we're looking at up here. You know, BMWs, Goldwings, H2s. The Super Duke is a very niche product, and that's okay. Like us as diehard motorcyclists, we can look at that and say, oh, sick, that's got the 1400cc V-twin. It's got the crazy orange design. It looks like a crazy futuristic bug. We all like that stuff. Normal people look at that and say, what the hell is even that?
Right.
You know, like it's a naked bike. It's got that really weird wasp front end on it. I think the new one has like the weird like trapezoidal like front end. Like it's not a very, let's say, easy on the eyes. And in today's video, we did talk a little bit about that prestige factor, and I don't think it has much of that. In terms of its efficacy, it's a very competent street bike. It can do wheelies, it can handle pretty well, but I just think that it's missing something in terms of it being an overall like great finisher motorcycle. Like you said, you gotta be orange pilled, you gotta already like be a KTM guy. So I think this one we were pretty rough on too, right? We rated it a...
Yikes. Yeah, so we were pretty rough on the Super Duke. I think we rated it a D.
Oof. D.
Yikes.
Yeah.
But again, it's a matter of subjectivity for us and subjectivity for the owner, right? If you love KTM and you want the biggest, baddest KTM they sell, you get a Super Duke. If you're a normal person that doesn't, you don't get a KTM Super Duke. So I think that polarity, you know, results in a D tier.
Yeah, I think it's a bike that you got to really know what you want out of a motorcycle to get it. And it's not really gonna fit the bill for like a finisher bike necessarily. But again, if you're a diehard enthusiast, maybe. So it sits in the D tier.
Super Duke. D for Duke.
Super D. Moving on. Next up is Honda's fabled superbike, the CBR 1000 RRSP Fireblade. I've been saying that whole moniker for a few years now, and I always get really annoyed every time I have to say the whole thing. So the Fireblade, as you guys know, going back to the 90s, was one of the first proper super bikes. They lightened it up, and then over the years they've polished and refined it. And this is a motorcycle now that I think has really hit the mark for Honda of being exclusive, of being sort of like a top shelf bike. For many, many years, the CBR 1000 RR had that feeling of like, oh, okay, it's pretty value driven, like it's a pretty good street bike, it's pretty good on track. But the RRR really took it to the next level. The beautiful paint job, the proper Honda livery, like similar to the KTM, if you're truly Honda pilled, this is a fantastic motorcycle. Got a lot of character and charm out of that engine, revs like an R6, which is really nuts, and does the briefing pretty good. It does the business on track in a fun way. How do you feel about the old RRR SP?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a cool bike, and I think, you know, as probably people are catching on, I think the heritage of a model and the brand means a lot to me personally in terms of an expert level aspirational motorcycle that you're willing to spend, you know, $20, $30, $40,000 on. So I think the Fireblade in itself, like having that, paying that homage to the original Fireblade that really did redefine modern Japanese sport bikes, I think is really cool, and I think that means a lot for a lot of people. I think it's interesting as a model, like, you know, Honda's typically in the modern day, you know, pretty conservative. So the Fireblade in itself, the fact that it's like, it's a Honda, super fast, super powerful, it's got a cool name. Bikes don't have cool names anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty sweet. If I was into, you know, sport bikes, maybe I would aspire to wield the blade.
Wield the blade, yeah, and truly you will wield the blade. This bike is crazy fast. We had one back in 2021. We flashed it and put an exhaust on it, and I genuinely cannot believe how much power this thing makes. It genuinely makes all 215 ponies. It sure as hell makes them. This is a very fast motorcycle, and it makes that proper inline four scream. So for today's video, we're rating it a B. Now, Honda is a very well-known moniker, but I think when you compare it against the brand prestige of the H2 or the Goldwings and all that stuff, you know, it is still a relatively specialized machine. It's very much a track-oriented bike, so if you get one for the road, it's definitely overkill and kind of like a, you know, not quite as good as the S1000 is on road, obviously. It's a little more track-focused, but I still think it's a great bike. You post a photo of it, real enthusiasts say, oh, nice, like Honda Fireblade, like that's an awesome bike. So, solid contender, B tier.
I once heard someone describe Aprilia as the Walmart Ducati.
Wow.
I don't necessarily believe that to be true, but that's what people say. And I only mention that, one, our next bike is the RSV4. I only mention that because we docked the RSV4 a little bit because it doesn't have that brand cachet, right? It's not a Ducati, it's not even a Honda, right? Like Aprilia is very specialized, right? Not as niche as KTM, definitely more lovable for majority of people than KTMs are.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have necessarily that like it factor unless you're somebody in the know. And I think that kind of, when something becomes too specialized, the appeal gets smaller and it misses out on some attention.
I think the Aprilia for me can be summed up as an experience that I recently had because I currently have an Aprilia 210 V4. I can't tell you why, but I have one. And I went to a little burger joint. I sat down, got my burger, all that. And a guy came up to me and he went, I have to ask you, what the hell is that motorcycle? It sounds like nothing I've ever heard before because I do have a pipe on it. And I was very happy to, you know, give a little podium and talk about my bike and talk about how much I love it. But I think that's the thing about Aprilia is like, if you see one in person, the sound that these bikes make, for the V4s especially, is going to captivate you, especially if you're even remotely interested in motorsports or anything like that. Nothing sounds like an RSV4 or an Aprilia V4. But then you tell them, oh, it's an Aprilia. They go, oh, interesting. Like they have no concept for what it is. So to Logan's point, it lacks that immediate wow factor other than the fact that it sounds so goddamn good. It just is such a great sound on this motorcycle. And so we did have to rate it a B today, right, Logan? Yep. So B tier for the RSV4, and you know, it's sitting right there in the kind of CBR 1000 RR. But again, you're just not going to get that kind of prestige that you would with some of these other bikes. I'm very excited to talk about this next one. Very pumped, very pumped. Panigale V4S, the brand new one, flagship Ducati model. Need I say more, Logan? I mean, where do we think it's gonna land? I mean, obviously, right?
I mean, I'm thinking S.
Let's just call it like that and we'll explain why. So Panigale V4S is going to be S, not just because it is an S for S, but because when you talk about exclusivity, when you talk about the brand, when you talk about fancy, cool finisher bikes, you know, there's an old Porsche poster that I really like. It's like an old 993, and it says, come on now, did you really dream about a Nissan or a Mitsubishi?
Sure, right.
Ducati is the dream brand, you know, it's the poster bike. It's the bike that everyone in theory is like, oh, I want the really fast red cool and the Ferrari of bikes, right? All the brand cachet. So I think it does a lot for that. Flip side though, Ducati is also a bitch to get into, because if you got a Panigale V4S, congratulations. By all metrics, you have an absolute king dick, amazing, clout-driven motorcycle. But once you start hanging out with the other Ducati guys, you're gonna say, oh, you got the S, you didn't get the R, you didn't get the Pecco Bagnaia Limited, you didn't get the Lamborghini edition. So the problem with the Panigale is that you start playing in this other field where you gotta start really amping up the ante to even compete with the level of clout. So it's actually S-. It's an S- motorcycle.
I can understand where you're going with this. Essentially, you're saying if you're buying anything less than a V4R, you need to be a Ducati owner that still hangs out with like Yamaha riders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what it is. Yeah, like you have to exist in a like 2 socioeconomic brackets down for you to feel really good about yourself. Because I don't know if you guys have ever had this experience. I recently did. You show up with a base model Panigale V4 that is relatively unmodified, and then you have the Ducati Austin garage at Coda that has, you know, the guy backing up his Porsche Cayenne with his 2 V4Rs, and you're like, well, this is stupid. You know, like, what's all this? It's a different ball game when it comes to Ducati, but I still think if you own any Panigale, it's very, very cool and has a lot of prestige and is certainly worth your time as a finisher motorcycle. Very sweet.
So speaking of Ducati, I don't know about you, but like I don't really want to take my touring bike to the track. You know what I mean? And that's sort of like what I think of.
Don't understand.
Multistrada V4. All their marketing stuff is like people riding them on track. I'm like,
yeah, it is
that's not what
silly.
I want.
Yeah.
And that's not what, if I was even buying a Ducati, I would rather have a bike that's compromised in touring or comfort and just buy like a real Ducati. You know what I mean? To do Ducati stuff. Like, I'm not gonna be, spending Multistrada V4 money to get all the science-driven tech features and then be like, it's just ridiculous. I wouldn't do it. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I think it's because like Ducati is one of those companies, like they can only really build like sport and race bikes. So even when they build a touring bike, they're like, it's gotta do sport and race bike stuff, you know, which I find kind of silly, and it's almost endearing in a way where you're like, oh, these tiny Italians, the only thing they can do is build like go fast machines. They can't help themselves. So from that angle, I think it's pretty cool. But again, I think it's kind of niche, and if I'm gonna be totally honest, these bikes are kind of ugly. They look like giant birds. I remember we had one in 21 and I brought it back home, and my wife was like, that's one of the ugliest bikes I've ever seen. I'm like, but it's a Ducati. She's like, I don't give a shit what it is. Like, that thing is disgusting looking. So I think it suffers from that. It has like big touring bike energy, but not like in a cool way like the Goldwing does. Like, I don't know. Like, to me, it's a bit too niche. It's a bit too strange. For the right guy, it's the finisher bike, but I don't know.
So when it comes to touring bikes, I think they become cool when you accept them as tools for utility, not for like style or performance or clout, right?
Yeah.
So like, and that's even the thing, some of my issues with like the new BMW GSs and stuff. It's like, I want something that's a tool that I can use, that's comfortable and easy to live with. I don't want to pay tens of thousands of extra dollars for a brand or an idea of luxury or whatever. Like if I wanted a cool, fast, exciting bike from a European brand, I would get a cool, fast, exciting bike. I wouldn't get a touring bike that's leaning into that. It just is antithetical and I don't like it.
Yeah, I agree, where if you're gonna get a touring bike, just get a freaking touring bike. Get the best one, get a Goldwing. If you want a sport bike, get a Ducati, get the best one. Like, don't try to do two things at once, you know? Like, that's why I think the Multi kind of fails. So what do we rate this one, Logan?
A C.
C tier. Sitting with the Yamaha R1M, but for different reasons. R1M is a bit long in the tooth. Multistrada is just doing a bit too much, a bit too niche, a bit too strange. And if you have to explain to people that it is a Ducati, it's not a Ducati.
Right.
Final bike for today's video is a bit of an oddball, but a lovable one, a bike that I really enjoy. It's the Triumph Rocket 3. Now, this can definitely be considered a finisher motorcycle. By all accounts, this is a bike you need a lot of experience to ride, a lot of miles in the saddle, and certainly a pretty fat checkbook to go and buy one. These things are, I think, pretty close to $30,000, but you do get a 2.5 liter 3-cylinder engine that has shock and awe factor, right, Logan?
Certainly. It's funny, I was joking, it's like, that's the motorcycle that, compared to an Aprilia or even the spiciest Ducati, like someone that knows not a single thing, they could have been born yesterday, not a single understanding of motorcycles, cars, anything, will be captivated buy the Rocket 3. You know what I mean? It's inhuman. It looks like a crime against nature. Like, it only has 2 wheels, but it has a car engine. That is crazy, right?
Yeah. And it really looks like it too. It has a 240 rear section tire. The engine is just this absolute lump. It almost feels like something that someone put together in their backyard. It has a lot of curb appeal. It is crazy. You joke that it's the type of bike that Chinese tourists would like swarm around it with like selfie sticks and be like, look what they have in America, even though it's a British motorcycle. Right. It's a bike that by all accounts should not exist. I don't even know how they keep making these things. Like, I've also never seen one of these out in the wild before. This is a pretty rare motorcycle, but it is very specialized and it is a bit weird. And I don't think it does anything all that well other than roast rear tires, but it's a novel experience. So this one kind of sat in the middle, kind of trending down a little bit, right?
Yeah, it seems like a bike someone would ultimately get kind of tired of. You know? Lugging it around, like, it only wants to do one thing, right? Like,
yeah, that's actually a good point. A bike that you would ultimately kind of get sick of. You're like, okay, like, I've had my fun. Like, this was cool for like 6 months, but I kind of wanted something else now.
Yeah, it's like you want to be able to just get gas without people just like
ogling. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, so this one we rated a D for today's video. So it's sitting there with the Super Duke, kind of an odd, engorged, strange motorcycle that real deal enthusiasts will always give you props for. Like, if I were to ever see a Rocket 3, I'd be like, oh, hell yeah, that's awesome. But I don't think I'd want to own one. They're a bit strange and they're a bit over the top. Logan, out of all the bikes we chose today, which one is your finisher motorcycle?
I mean, of all the ones we talked about today, I mean, it would probably be like the GS, which is funny because I was just kind of talking shit on it. But, you know, not a big sport bike guy. And I like utility and I like function. I wouldn't want to pay GS prices, but
and it was one lightly used, comes around pretty good.
Yeah, I still should have bought that 2004, 3,500 bucks, yellow.
You absolutely should have bought
Maybe
that.
It'll come back up in spring and I'll buy it.
Maybe. Well, my finisher bike, obviously, I don't even have to tell you guys, it would be the Panigale V4. And that's why I have one right now, but I can't tell you guys why I have one, but I do love it very, very much. And every time I ride it on track, which has only been 2 times now, I feel like $1 million bucks. It is a really fun experience, really, really nice to own. And it definitely has, for me, that feeling of like, I've made it in life. And that's what it comes down to, boys. If you get a Road Glide or a Busa or a Super Duke, and it gives you that I've made it feeling, then it is your expert bike. This is just all our subjective bullshit. Just a fun little video for you guys to enjoy today, so don't get too up in arms about it. We appreciate you watching. We'll catch you all in the next one. See you later.